Hello and welcome. I'm Jon Garlick. The sheriff and his crew are out doing some pretty heavy sheriff lifting right now, so it's just me and our guest today. But it's been a hot week. Last week we had record-breaking hot temperatures, but the sheriff's office, their deputies were hot as well, and they arrested one, bringing our count to 5,198 since this show was started some 20 some odd years ago. That's 5,100, almost 5,200 people arrested thanks to your information and tips, bringing those people to justice at the Hotel Calhoun County. We have some really good guests for us this week. We're going to spend some time with them in just a minute. But first, we want to take a look at the first half of the lineup here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. Welcome to this week's edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted. Our lineup brought to you this week by Abe's Ace Bail Bonds. Abe's Ace Bail Bonds located in Heflin and Cleburne County at 256-463-1824 or Calhoun County 256-831-0074. First up on our lineup this week, Troy Payton. Mr. Payton, last known to be living in Anniston, he is wanted for violation of the Sex Offender Notification Act. And meet William Wilson. Mr. Wilson, last known to be living in Anniston, he's wanted for trafficking in methamphetamines. And take a look at Frank Lackey. Mr. Lackey, last known to be living in Anniston, he is also wanted for violation of the Sex Offender Notification Act. Meet Michael Kirksey. Mr. Kirksey, last known to be living in Oxford, he's wanted for burglary third. And this is Sharika Miss Minor, last known to be living in Anniston. She's wanted for possession of a controlled substance. And that's it for the first half of our lineup. Stay tuned for the second half later in the show. Welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in that half of the lineup. You might know where they are. If you do, call the sheriff's office. You call, they haul. We are here with two wonderful people, some old friends of mine. We have Ted Embry on the end of the table and Bart Owens in the middle. Hi, guys.
How are you doing?
Good morning, John.
And you guys comprise like the biggest part of the leadership of the Chehaw Crisis Management Team.
Yes.
And I was a member of that team once.
Yes, you were.
And had a great time. So
we've worked well together on a number of occasions.
We've helped a lot of people.
We have.
Why don't you tell our viewers what exactly a crisis management team is?
Well, you asked, John. The crisis team was designed to provide support for public safety professionals, EMS, law enforcement, firefighters. We expanded to include educators, even workplace. Individuals who are overwhelmed by a critical incident and their normal coping skills just are not quite there for them.
This is a trauma response.
It's a trauma response
So
team.
we know our first responders, fire, EMS, and law, experience lots of trauma.
They do.
I know I did when I was doing all that. And at the end of the day, they've got to cope with that.
They do.
And part of the treatment is a team approach where you bring in the crisis management team, and you folks and a bunch of others on your team are trained to help us process that trauma.
What happens so many times when trauma occurs is people feel overwhelmed that they're feeling something it's not normal for them. And so provided them hope and some healthy suggestions on how to cope with that has been very beneficial. Being able to respond immediately within a few hours, certainly within 24 hours, is crucial. It's not therapy in the true sense of the word. We're not therapists, but we're trauma specialists, John.
Well, you know, and it's a vital thing because part of the treatment of trauma, it's kind of two things. One, you've got to take the memory of that trauma and you have to bring it to the forefront because a lot of people that experience trauma are stuffing it down. They don't want to think about it. So that part of their brain is like, But the brain wants you to think about it. It needs you to process it, which is where flashbacks and nightmares come from. The brain's like, hey, let's do something. So once you remember it, then there's all these emotions that go with it, because memory is emotion. And one of the wonderful things that the teams do is very quickly after the event, you get everybody that was involved and they start sharing their experience for the day. So in a safe environment, I can talk about how I responded to that event. And you may not have been with me. You may have been across the lot doing stuff. So you don't know what I went through, but you're guessing. And I don't know what you went through.
Right.
But now at the end of this session, I know what everybody experienced, and then you guys can draw that together and normalize what is otherwise a very abnormal thing. And then I can go home with your handouts and your education that says, this is probably what you're going to experience, right?
It's very, very well spoken there, because they're in a situation they're not comfortable with, but you can, if it's a groupie response, help them understand what they feel is normal. Your term of normalizing that is crucial to help them recover and move on.
And there's some things that people, whether they're in a group or individually that have experienced trauma, there's some things they can expect over the next 3 or 4 days after the traumatic event. So what are some of those things?
The normal trajectory is to, there'll be a numbing effect, or there might be strong emotions, anger, doubt, those type things that are common occurrences following a trauma. And so it affects loss of sleep, which is one of the major things that causes a person not to be able to function quite as well, because if we don't sleep well, we don't perform as well.
Right.
Eating too much or not eating enough, eating the wrong foods, going to the pizzas and the donuts and the things that aren't best for us, but they're quick and easy and
Comfort food.
Comfort foods, and they know they've got to be ready for the next event that's coming. So there's a sense of urgency that they are responding to as well, to know there's something else coming down the road.
Right, and so often in the first responder world, there are some events where we can give the first responders some time off. Like if it's a major event or an officer-involved shooting or a really bad fire, then there might be the capacity within that agency to let some people go home for a few days. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often. They have to come right back to where there's another call, and so they're having to adapt to this lack of sleep. And all the first responders I know, including myself, even after retirement, I still only get about 4 to 6 hours worth of sleep.
Right.
It's just the way it goes. And you have to understand that even if you're not sleeping, that's a normal thing. And you have to process that stuff. We've done some of these for teams.
Right.
And I remember one we did in Piedmont years ago with the fire and EMS folks. And I believe it was a traffic accident where 3 teenagers were killed.
That's right.
And the team did a great job, and everybody processed as they should. The fascinating thing, if that's the right word for me as a therapist, was that during that session, if you remember, these first responders were the same first responders that had responded to the tornado back on Palm Sunday, right?
Right.
That's right.
That many years
That's right.
before,
Yeah.
many years before, and they'd never had the opportunity to talk to a team.
Right.
So in the process of that session, all of that came up too.
Right.
And I thought that was just a tremendous example of the healing power of this team.
Well, there is the model that we adopted 20 years ago is a very proven model, and there's power within a group when you can build on those within the group, because not everybody's at the same level, and so that group experience is very beneficial to the entire group, and they own that experience, and they move through that themselves as a group, so they become very cohesive in that process.
It's very healing. So kind of give us an example of how, real quickly here, we got about a minute before our break,
Right.
of how that process works in group.
Well, first, we come when we're invited. We do not self-deploy, but if we're invited to come in, and then we would have a session with the chief or whoever is the highest authority to understand the breadth and what the symptoms are and what people are demonstrating, And so we make an assessment, and that tells us how many team members we need, what team members to take with us, and then we'll set it up in a safe place, generally in their setting, in their firehouse, in their police station, something that they're comfortable with, and they can know that this is going to be for them, and confidentiality will be maintained. Establishing that trust on the front end is crucial.
Absolutely important. So we're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll talk more about the team and the good work you're doing and how maybe somebody can become a member of that team.
Okay.
In the meantime, we got the second half of our lineup, so stay here with us on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. Welcome to the second half of our lineup. First up this half, Tyler Pope. Mr. Pope, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted for domestic violence, second. Take a look at Pamela Mobley. Miss Mobley, last known to be living in Jacksonville. She's wanted for theft of property, third. And this is Lakeisha Smith. Smith, last known to be living in Anniston. She's wanted for forgery, second. And take a look at Chad Goss, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted for receiving stolen property, first. This is Shane Bartlett. Mr. Bartlett, last known to be living in the Jacksonville area. He's wanted for burglary, third. And that's it for our lineup this week. If you have any information on these folks, please give Crime Stoppers a call. That number, 1-833-251-7867. Welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in that half of the lineup. You might know where they are. Call Crime Stoppers. Call the Sheriff's Office. You call, they haul. We're here with Bart Owens and Ted Embry of the Chehaw Crisis Management Team. We talked a lot about what the teams do and how beneficial it is. So not everybody is cut out for team membership, right?
Right.
So what kind of are the core personality traits and then the training required to be on this team?
One of the main things is that you have to have a strong resume, which we look to first responders or people that have been in mental health to join our team because it's peer driven, and we want them on our team.
You know, that's so important. You said peer driven. That's how we kind of broke into this for the first responders. You know, law enforcement, fire, EMS, those groups of people are very standoffish. You know, you don't know what we go through. You're not one of us. And so the development of peer counselors through the teams and also individuals are being trained now at the agencies is so vital in making that therapeutic connection. Sorry, that just had to...
Oh, that's fine.
So go ahead.
Well, it's peer driven, like I said. If you're part of that process of being a responder of some kind, even educators are reported to our team too. We have school teachers, retired nurses have been on our team, medical field as well. EMS, those people are involved in it. So we want all those that will like to be on our team. We're a nonprofit. You know, we don't make any money. We pay our own way. And so our only interest is to help. We're not in it for any other reason. So if you've got that desire to want to give back, then that's what our team's looking for, someone that qualifies to do that with a strong resume, already doing things of that nature, so you understand how to help people already. And then, like I said about peers, but we can give back to the community. I think one of the main things with me is we have spiritual side on our team as well. And part of my responsibilities, I'm the chaplain of the team. And so one of my greatest opportunities is to make sure our team is healthy. So when we go into an event, whatever it is, if I'm called out on an event, that's different. But if I'm not, part of my process is I do debriefing. So when the team responds to something, when they come off of that event, I'll challenge them to the same things they challenged others to, with the same process of helping them vent and be able to cope with their stresses that they just got put on them, so they can go home and sleep at night, or notice the signs that they got a problem and need to seek other help. Because sometimes when it's loaded on you, it's hard to get it out of your system.
Well, that's right. I mean, they're dealing with folks that have been through this trauma, and then there's this secondary traumatizing that we show up and listen to that,
right,
and guide them through it, and you can't help but be sensitive to that,
sure,
and be empathetic, and then internalizing all of that trauma, and it can affect the team members as well. They can be traumatized just by listening to the trauma that the others have. So that's vital. And the other thing is there is a spiritual component to being traumatized.
That's right.
There's that I no longer have faith. There is no God. Why would God do this?
That's right.
And you can help maybe not answer those questions, but at least process them through it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, if a person has faith-based, it's okay to pray with them, you know, if that's what they want. And of course, that's what I like, but we don't force it on anybody. But I mean, it's part of our process. We open with prayer and do the best we can to include God in what we do as often as we can. But it's not a requirement, but we appreciate it when we can do that, because it's important to the person to have that degree of spiritualness. Because when you're in trauma, I mean, one of the things I've always seen is people call on God, even if they don't know Him.
Yep.
So that's important.
Well, it's just nice to have feel like there's a bigger power that might be helping.
That's right.
Yeah.
And also our team, go ahead.
When you were talking about coming on the team and the training that's required as a team members, Bart, I'd like you to address some of that.
I was fixing to.
Okay.
There's about 24, 25 hours that we require initially to be on our team. We provide that training, but they have to go through a process of learning things. I got it wrote here that we do training of initially and continuing education training each year. An application interview process will be approved by our team leader, clinical director, and our leadership team. So we provide that training. You got to go through those preliminary ones to be on our team to be able to respond. So we do training every year. Every one of us is required to go through training. And not only we have initial training, but we have training every year to keep our skills available to use to help others. So we're professionals in what we do. You know, trauma specialists, we're in there for the right reason. And so if you're just looking to have a appearance or something, that's not what we want. We want somebody who wants to be helping people on our team, and we need that. And we've got a good team already, but we've got openings all the time. So
well, it's a demanding
it is
profession, really, and so you have to have the right core requirements. You know, who are you? What do you do for a living? First responder, educator. What do you do for a living? And then go through your screening process, and then you're still affiliated with the International Crisis Intervention,
Right.
whatever that ICISF.
ICISF.
Yep. So you do their trainings too, and those are pretty intense. So
They're
for
very
somebody,
intense.
I've got a graduate degree in counseling and a license, so I went through a lot of training.
Right.
This stuff is very similar.
It is.
You're doing group, you're doing individual, you're doing. They're different tracks too. So what are some of the tracks that they
Some of the most common ones that we use, when Bart mentioned educators in the school setting, we do a CMB, that's a crisis management briefing. And in the schools, for me and you, it was an assembly. You'd get everybody together. Well, actually, you're managing that emotion that's impacted that entire school, both the students and the faculty administration, with a crisis management. Very strategic. It has specific goals to accomplish.
You know, one of the things that struck me as we came out of COVID, and you know, a lot of students all over the nation were home learning on the internet, which was a terrible way to learn. When they came back into school, I've been talking to many teachers that are students in my classes at JSU. There was trauma.
Oh, there was.
The going home was traumatic, the coming back to school was traumatic, and they did nothing. They did, welcome back to the class, hi everybody, here's your homework. And I couldn't help but think we needed the teams to come in there and do a debriefing for these students.
Would have been very beneficial.
Would have been great. So we're going to take another break, but very quickly, how many hours of additional training beyond the 24 that you just talked about?
We have specialized courses. 25 hours is involved in individual intervention and group intervention. And then we have specialized courses in suicide intervention. We have courses in managing school crises. These are 2-day courses, usually 13 hours. The suicide course is a 1-day course, 7 hours. And then we have, beyond that, there is advanced group, just a full arrangement of courses. To be a comprehensive team, you have to have a curriculum that meets those criteria.
It's not a small thing. We're going to take a quick break and be back, and then you can tell everybody how to join your team.
all right.
Stay with us. We have the Crime Stoppers portion of our show, and we'll be right back here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to the Crime Stoppers portion of our show, where we ask your help in the following cases. First up, between August 15th and August 18th, a gray Mazda Grand Touring was broken into at the residence on Webster's Chapel Road in Wellington. They got away with a black Smith & Wesson Shield firearm. And between August 17th and August 18th, an ATV was stolen in a residence on Bethel Church Road. The ATV is 2006 red, wrapped in gray-white camouflage tape, Polaris Sportsman 500, with a black cargo box and a back rack and aftermarket tires. If you have any information on these cases, please give Crime Stoppers a call. That number 1-833-251-7867. Welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in that, or one of those cases in Crime Stoppers. You might know some information. If you do, please give Crime Stoppers a call. They need some of that information. We are still here with Bart Owens and Ted Embry of the Cheehaw Crisis Management Team. And we've talked a lot about the teams and what good they do and kind of the core requirements for people to be on the team, which is no small thing. This is not just a, hey, I want to do this for the fun of it. This is a big commitment, and called out late at night, on weekends, whenever the disaster is. So people are interested in being on the team. Where can they go to find out more information and how to do that?
The easiest way to contact the team would be through my phone number. List 256-282-9573. And the other option is through email, which is cheehawcmt@outlook.com. Cheehaw Crisis Management Team, cheehawcmt@outlook.com, or 256-282-9573. And I would like to say, John, we've never charged for any intervention work. The work that we do is a service to our public safety professionals, educators, etc.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you, Ted, Bart, for being on the show. We appreciate your information, and we look forward to seeing you folks again next week, but not in the lineup here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.